Welcome to part 2 of this short video series looking at the new modules in iZotope Ozone 7, and I'm using them to master this track by Debucus. Now, in the first video I took a look at the vintage tape module and also using the imager, which is a standard Ozone module. Now if we go back to looking at the new modules, the next device that I want to take a look at is the vintage compressor. Now this track is quite nicely mixed and it's very dynamic, so I want to take a look at if using a little bit of compression could just rein the dynamics in a bit and glue everything together quite nicely for the master. Now by no means would I always use compression in mastering. It really depends what the mix sounds like, but for this track I think a little bit of compression is really going to do us some good. So I've turned it on here and I'm actually using the compressor to do a little bit more than just compression. You'll hear if I A-B this, if I turn it off and then if I turn it back on. So you might notice that those keyboard chords actually come forward a little bit more when I turn the compression on. And the way I'm doing this is I'm using the compressor in mid-side mode. So in case you're not aware, mid-side is just a different way of interpreting the stereo image. Rather than dividing it into left and right, we're dividing it into mid, which is everything that's equal in both sides, so it's the mono, and then side, which is everything that's unequal in the two sides of the stereo image, that's the sides. So if we listen to the sides in solo, you can hear it's basically all of the sounds that are either processed to be quite stereo or are panned to one side or the other. And you can hear there's not really any bass in there. Remember, in the imager, I monoed the low frequencies. If I push them out in stereo, you hear them that they appear in the sides, but we don't want that. So that's the reason why I'm doing this. But we can also hear those really nice keyboard pads. If I take the sides out of solo again, and if we quickly listen to the mids. So this is everything that's in mono in the track. And a lot of the really important stuff's in here. The kick, the snare, the bass. But what I've done is, I've used the compressor to rebalance the mid and side a bit. So you can see in the side compressor, if we look over here, I've turned the gain up by 7.6 dB. Now we're only compressing around about 3 dB most of the time. So I've actually added quite a lot of level to the sides. And then on the mids, I'm compressing it by 2 to 2.5 dB on most beats. And I'm adding 2 dB makeup gain. So if I A-B this. So the sides are very, very noticeably louder, but the mids are about the same level. Now in terms of the actual compression, on both sides, I'm trying to keep it fairly smooth. I've got this default attack here of 24 milliseconds. This means that the compressor's not going to act too quickly and too severely. And then our release here is around about the 100 millisecond mark on both sides. Now one other thing I've got here is our detection filter. So what I'm doing here is I'm rolling off a bit of the low frequencies, just so that the compressor doesn't work quite so heavily based on the bass. So this kind of track, if I leave that detection filter open all the way, every kick drum is going to make the compressor really suck. So that's working really nicely for me. So that combination of the dynamics change that we're making and also altering the balance of the sides in relation to the mid really has widened it out. It's really thickened it up. Those keyboards sound really, really nice now. And one thing for me in mastering and mixing, whenever I'm doing compression, the makeup gain, I always want to use my ears. So I've soloed the mids there, and if I turn it on and off, it's about the same level, pretty much. That's what I'm interested in. If you see your compressor is reducing the gain by, say, 2 dB, that doesn't mean you need to add 2 dB makeup gain. You need to use your ears. So let's go back to the start of the track here and move on to the next module, and this is the Vintage EQ. Now this is an interesting one because if you've not used EQ like this, which has a slightly unusual interface, it might just take you a little while to get your head around it. So this is sort of modelled on old hardware EQs like the Pultec and some of the Neve EQs and those kind of things, and it's a bit of a mixed bag of different types of filters from different types of EQs. But what we have to remember is that each of the bands present in the EQ has a different function, either a boost or a cut, rather than every band being able to be positive or negative for a boost or a cut. And each one functions in quite a different way, as is illustrated by the shapes within the interface there. So you can see we have little diagrams showing us the kind of filter change shapes that are going to make when we start to use these. Now, what I've tried to do here, again, is use the mid and side setting. So if I solo the sides, so I've tried to filter out a lot of the bottom end. I mean, there's not a tremendous amount there, but I'm just trying to tighten it up a bit more. And then also, I've got this mid cut here. And you can see that's giving you that bump out there. We've got a high mid boost here. So it's those kind of frequencies there. We've also got a high frequency boost starting at 8K here. So I'm just going to take that out of solo. I just want to rebalance that. I want to make sure I've got that right. Yeah, something like that, I think. I've used a little bit of low cut here, down at 45 Hertz. Now what you have to remember is that this Vintage EQ is totally different from the classic kind of digital EQs that you would normally be used to using either in Ozone or in your DAW, where you've got almost infinitely variable EQ curves and modes and all of those things. Really, what we're trying to do here is use the idiosyncrasies of these different filters to bring something good to the track. And I do like what it's brought to it. It feels a little warmer, it definitely feels brighter. And we've pulled out a little bit of congestion in the low mids. This is helping us there. And I think that's working really, really nicely. If we look at the mid EQ here, I've got a really high frequency, high boost here. I'm just going to go back a little bit in the track. So that's got some real sparkle in the mids there for us. We can alter the Q of that here, which you can just see slightly making a difference. So that for me is working really, really well. Again, if I A/B that whole module, and back in. To me, it just sounds less congested in the mids, particularly the low mids. It sounds a lot brighter. It's really, really sounding sweet. And again, if we A/B the whole thing, so the main thing I noticed that when I bypass that is it's less bright. It's a bit thumpy in the kind of low mids, but also when I take the bypass and put it on, I can hear a lot of low frequencies going out in a stereo, and that is a problem. We've got to really, really watch out for that, and this is taking care of it. So up to this point, I'm very happy with the way it's sounding. Now in the next video, I'm going to move on to the final two modules. I'm going to take a look at hosting an external plugin within Ozone, and then we're going to get to the limiter, and I'm also going to take a look at dithering and the codec preview function.